Today I'm going to show you how you can create different types of buttons and how you can animate, how you can stylize, and how you can create components, how you can create different types of font styles and overstays, animations, etc. So let's get started. So first, as usual, we just gonna create frame. So you just click on the frame icon at the top left here, and then at the right side you can see the properties here. So let's go start with the MacBook Pro. So I just gonna click on the MacBook Pro, and then you get a screen frame like this. Yeah, as usual, let's rename this. I'm gonna call it buttons. I mean, it doesn't matter what name you give it here, but just for this tutorial sake, I just gonna call it buttons. You can zoom in and zoom out. So let's check it out here. So first, to create a button, as usual, you just create on the square here, and then you click and drag, and then you get this square here, right? So this is your button. So let's you can also manually adjust the height here if you want. So for like 70 and then maybe 150 pixels width, something like that, right? So now we have the square, and then you can add also a text here. So let's go ahead and add a text. Let's call it button. Maybe let's call it primary button. And now we just align it to the center, and there we go, we have a button, but it doesn't look so pretty. So let's change the color to maybe some blue. There, and then we change the text color to white, so it stands out. But I think the size of the text is too small, so let's because of the button size is too big, so let's change here to 14 pixels so it looks better, maybe. So yeah, so that's our simple button. And you can also click on the text and then click on the on the keyboard. You just press Alt or Option key on Mac, and then if you move your mouse cursor to the next or the closest object, and then or you can see the alignment, how far is this text is located from the nearest object. So yeah, and now we know that's center, and that's our primary button. Now how we can make it stylized, and then how we can make it even next level. So for that, we just select everything. Let's make a duplicate of this. You can either press Alt and then drag it, or you can also press Ctrl D and then just drag it. So either way is fine. So what happens is that it just makes a copy of the original version. Now we have a copy. So let's make it some radius for this. So to add a radius, you can either click on this white dot similar to Illustrator, and then just pull in so that it gives you a rounded corner, so it's helpful if you really want to have like a full pill type button. So you just don't need to go adjust there. Instead, you can just pull it here, and you can see in real time how the time or the time it turns into the pill from square. But in our case, let's add a border radius of 4 pixels. I don't recommend adding more pixels than 4 pixels for a button. So maybe you can add max up to 8 pixels, but I think that's too much for a button. Like a kind of a square button. So I usually add just 4 pixels here. So now it looks a little bit better than the first version. Of course, there's also like sharp edge buttons too, but it's okay. And next, let's make one more version of this. You can Alt click or Ctrl D to make a duplicate version. So I think the height, the area is too big for a button. So so let's make it smaller. So what I do, if you want to make it smaller, it's one side only. When you click and drag, I want both sides to be shorter, simultaneously. So what you have to do is click on the option on Mac or Alt on Windows, press that button on the keyboard, and then just click and drag. So you can see both top and bottom strings. So let's keep it around 40 there, 42, 40. Yep. So that looks better now, and now it turns into a normal button kind of size. Maybe we can also adjust it the same way at the left and right. Let's put it like 130 maybe. Okay, so now we are very close to a very good looking and good balanced button. So what's there from here? So let's say we need to add some shadow for this. So let's go ahead and add some shadow. So basically, to add a shadow, at the right side you can see so properties, text, fill, stroke, and the bottom you can see an options called effects. So when you click on this, by default it creates a shadow. You also have other functions like layer blur, background blur, inner shadow. So if you try inner shadow, it gives you like cut out area of a button. So sometimes I never use this, to be honest, in my project, but sometimes it's helpful if you quickly want to do some kind of a different effect for your design. It might be helpful, maybe some photo or something. Yeah, it depends on your project, right? So now we have added the text shadow, but if you notice, since I selected both together, the shadow is also applied for my button also. So I don't want that, so I'm just going to Control Z or Command Z to undo that, and then I just select only the rectangle, and then I click on the effect, so it gives me the shadow. So still you can go ahead and adjust the shadow properties from here. You can see is X value and Y value. If you set it 0, it will be like all around, and then if you put the spread, blur, and then the percentage, I recommend you to keep the color similar to the button color itself, and then is making, and then turn to 35 or something like that, instead of just pure black, so that it looks better shadow. You can also add a multiple shadow if you want to make it more clear or a different look, so that's also possible. So there you go, and that's how you create a shadow. So and let's just put it back to maybe 2, so that you can see the shadow there. But I think we need to make a little more darker version of that shadow. I'm not so happy with that result. So let's go ahead here and then make a little more darker color of the blue. Maybe somewhere around there, just for, it's not doing a perfect design here, we just to show you how you can do that design here. So yeah, now we have a button with a shadow. So let's say we try, okay, I will make a duplicate of this one again. Let's say we want to change the text here, maybe something short. Let's say submit. So the problem is that you see now the alignment and everything is, whatever we have worked so far is just gone, and then we need to readjust everything, and it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, there are different ways you can do that. One is you can put the text into the text align to the center, and then you can just say submit. But still, if you notice, the left and right is too big, and you just still need to adjust to this by manually dragging, right? So that's a bit complicated, and you have to do that many times. So how you overcome this situation? Is there a solution that automatically shrinks the size like dynamically, like so when I start typing to submit, does it shrinks to the text area? So yes, there is a way for that. You just select these together, select the button and then the text together, and then at the right side you see a gray out function called auto layout. So when you click on this plus icon, what happens is that if you notice at the left side, it created as a new frame, and then you cannot manually adjust the width or height of this item anymore. You can adjust the height, sorry, because we put it only for the width. So if it depends on which value you put it here. So if it's horizontally, for example, if it's vertically, that means you cannot adjust it vertically anymore. And if you change it horizontally, you cannot adjust it the left and right anymore. So now what it does is, let's go ahead and type see, this is what happens. Submit. Now whenever you create any text, submit, or we can say register, whatever, it automatically adjusts to your originally designed the space or padding or margin or whatever around your button. So you don't need to go ahead and adjust manually. So it saves so much time, and this is one of the best thing that I think saves my time when I create my project. The design works. So, and another thing, let's make a copy of this. It's there, and then let's change the color to something else. Maybe let's say some green there. Okay, maybe we call it login. Okay, now we have two buttons. So let's say we want to adjust the size between these two items, and but at the same time we want to set the spacing, I mean internal size or internal padding same as it is. So there's one way you can adjust these, but if you notice that even if you adjust it, nothing changes. That's because these two items are separate frames, not an individual frame. So you just click both together and then add an auto layout. Now if you notice, this both grouped into an auto layout item, and then if you adjust the space between the element or the buttons, you can adjust it without changing the inner padding of the button. Okay, so and now if you go inside of the particular button, and you can also adjust the padding like that if you want to override the original one. So yeah, so that's it. So this is the most useful function. I think you should definitely try it out, and then it's always helpful for you to create the button. And the best part of this is that it keeps the same padding all around the button, and wherever you create this button in your design, it keeps that same look and feel. So I really recommend this. Okay, now we created a button with frame, auto layout, and what's next? So let's go ahead and create a component. So if, for example, now if I go to the primary item of this, and if I change the color, you see only that particular button is changed. I want all the blue primary button to be new color, right? It doesn't. So how do we do that? For that, let's duplicate. Okay, let's go ahead and create a new button. Maybe we just duplicate this, and then we right click, and then you click create component. And now if you notice, it's a purple border around it. That means it's a new component. We can call it primary button. So just, you know, all, okay, sorry, there's a spell mistake. Primary button, and all the components you have added here, you can see there's two tabs, layers and assets. You can find under the assets here. I'll show you more details in my next tutorial, how you can organize and how you can categorize and subcategory, etc. for components. So for now, let's just stick to this. Okay, so yeah, now we have our primary button. Next, we just duplicate. Okay, let's do one more thing. That is the font style of this one. If you notice, the text of this primary button is not in normal style. I mean, of course we have the style, but we want to keep it like a style so that we can reuse it again. So for that, you just at the right side, you click on the text, there's 4 dots, click on the style, and as of now we have no style, so click on the plus button and then add, let's say, button label. So that will be added as your new style here in your local style here. And then another thing we need to do is the color. So as of now, if you notice, the background color of the button is just B0B. We have the hex value here, but we don't have a style here. So let's create a style for that button. So double click and make sure that you have selected the rectangle, and then the blue color is selected here, and then click on the style dot here, and then click the plus icon again, and then let's call it primary color or primary blue or whatever. Let's call it primary color for now. So we just created that style now. So now we have the primary color, the blue. So if you go out, if you click outside of your button, and then you can see at the right side, now we have a primary color, and then we have a text we have created. That's our button color, button font. So this is how you keep creating. The more your design gets bigger, you have the full local style guide here, and you can export it later. So yeah, okay, so now we have these two together, and then we just duplicate it. And let's say, we wanted to add a border here. So in this stage, we just go ahead and add a 4 pixels border. And if you notice, it doesn't here, if you double click and make sure that you selected the rectangle, and you're overriding the original master one. So this is your master component, but it didn't apply for that, but you have override here, right? So that's not good, because we want to make sure the button style is applied same everywhere. So how do you do that? So if you want to apply this button style overridden here to the master one, so you just click on the this component, and then right click, and if you go to the component, you can see main component, and then either you can go to main component and you can manually do that, or there's another option now that is called push override to the main component. So when you press this option, you can see the changes is applied to the primary button, which is your master component. So that's it. So next, let's go ahead and duplicate again, and let's make this smaller version, short button similar to this. So if you notice, we have a 40 pixels height and 130 pixels width. So we just manually do that, 130 pixels width and then 40 pixels height, and then we just manually adjust. But if you notice, if you try to adjust the text, you cannot manually move it. That's because you're trying to override the position of your primary button. But in this case, you cannot do that from your duplicated version. You have to go to your primary version and do that, or you have to detach from here to get to, and then it becomes a separate element. So for now, let's reset. So you just, if you click on the reset, it goes back to the original design, so don't worry even if you mess up. So what you have to do is go to the original primary button here, and then make sure you do the changes always here rather than individually managing here. But you can do that if you want to make it as a separate button. So in this case, let's just adjust to the size here, and you can see it applies everywhere in real time. So this is very good. So let's just adjust this to the the font. Let's just push it to the top. Yep, that looks much better now. So yeah, so that's it. And also you can do another thing, that you can also add an auto layout here, which we forgot, right? So you can do the auto layout in the, if you try to do the auto layout in the duplicated version, if you notice, you don't have that option here. But if you click on the primary item, and if you notice, you have the auto layout function. So again, see, there's layout grid, but you don't have, because it's a duplicated item, it's not the primary item, it's a child item. So this is your primary one, and if you notice, auto layout function is there. So I recommend you to add this auto layout function also for that particular button. And now it adjusts everywhere in the same manner, and there's no separate style for each, and you don't have to worry about adjusting the padding separately. And the next thing is, we also created, if you remember, we added 2 local styles here. So what's that? So I will tell you that. Instead of going and overriding the button, let's say we just wanted to change the font thickness. So for that, if you come here into the local style, and if you notice, there's when you mouse over, you get a small gear, style editing function there. So when you click on that, you can go and manually override. Let's make it like a bold, and now you see we didn't apply the style here, instead just for that style. So wherever that text is used, that text style is applied everywhere. The same way, when you go to the primary color, and let's say, oh, that blue is not exactly what I was thinking, I want to have a different blue, or let's say we want a green or whatever, you can see it applies everywhere in the same time. So this is another helpful feature, and it saves so much time when you do the design. So I really recommend this also, having a local style. So these are the best practices. We are not creating a full design in this tutorial, just showing you the best practices that when you can create that, or something that you may not even knew that it existed actually. Okay, now let's go ahead, and we can do the same for shadow also. Okay, we didn't apply a shadow here, but we can do that shadow. For shadow, let's quickly show you another thing. I usually use shadow called smooth shadow. There's also another one called shadow picker. This is also a OK plugin if you quickly want to, but usually I go for very dynamic or very complicated shadow, so I recommend you to install smooth shadow plugin. So it's an external plugin, it's a free plugin, of course. You can see that now it can invert the alpha, and you can expert, and you can also adjust the layer. Layer means this is the layer, okay, the color layer of this, and you can change the color manually here, maybe somewhere here dark red or something, and then you can change the blurriness here. You can see here the blurriness. So the layer is like number of layer you create. So if you notice here, maybe I will reduce the blurriness here. You can see here 1 2 3 4 layers. So if I adjust this, you can see now the layer is getting smaller. So now we have only 2 layers. So it's how many layers of shadow you want to create. So that's what it says. So if you go to the right side, it keeps creating more layers of shadow. I don't think you need too many, but usually I go with max 3 or 4, and then I stick to that. So, and then you can just add the blur there, and this is offset, so how far you want your shadow to be. And this is the alpha, of course, to make it darker and or make it too lighter. So let's say if you don't have this separate layer, so what happens is that if you have only a single layer, so usually you don't get that kind of cool 3D kind of feel. But if you have multiple layer, you can see it in the real time, it gives you an extra depth, and it stands out very nicely, and it gives you a 3D kind of feel. So that's it. And you can, when you switch to the invert alpha, so basically it turns into the normal shadow kind of feel. So these kind of advanced, of course you can also do it manually by adjusting using this handle here, and then you can click apply shadow here, and then it gets applied to that. So yeah, so that's how these buttons works and the shadow works. But if you try to do that same with the manual shadow picker like I show here, you don't get that very complicated shadow effect, and you don't get this cool feel for your button. So I really recommend you to use this plugin called Smooth Shadow. Yes, you can see I have so many plugins, but I will cover that in my next tutorial. So let's not waste time. I think I'm covering too much. Let's go ahead and create a mouse over or an animation effect. So let's quickly for that let's quickly or it's okay, we just use one of these button. Maybe we use this button as our sample. Maybe I don't need that shadow, so I will remove that shadow for now. And let me group it. So it's let me group it. Okay, so that's grouped now. So this is our button, and I need to create a mouse over effect. So there are different ways you can create it. For this, what you have to do is you have to create, okay, let's remove this all the other buttons so that's no distraction. Maybe we put it here. So if you want to have a mouse over effect, you need to have one more of course frame, and then there you change your text color to maybe a little dark blue or something there, and then go to the right side, prototype, click on that, and then you get, when you mouse over your button, you get this small red circle. Click on that and drag it to the right side, and then at the interaction change this value to while overing. That means when you mouse over this, it turns into that. And then in animation, I recommend you to keep it smart animate, so you don't need to worry too much, and ease in and out. So let's go ahead and play it and see how that looks. And now when you mouse over, you can see it turns into a darker color, or it fades into another color, right? So yeah, it's okay, but nothing so exciting, right? So what do you do next is, let's go ahead and add some shadow also here. So in this case, let's quickly add our shadow. So to add a quick shadow, I just use shadow picker. So basically I need to select the rectangle. Yes, okay, maybe a medium shadow, apply shadow. Yes, we have a shadow there. So if you want to add one more shadow to make it more darker, okay, and then we just make it a little more darker here, maybe like 15. So I mean, I'm just showing you, I know we don't need that dark here, but I just wanted to show you in the real design, you know, the shadow looks stand out. So that's the only reason I just wanted to show that. So you see that now we get the button with the shadow. Okay, the next thing is, if you want to grow this button, let's say when I mouse over, I want to have a like button growing to left and right. So for that, you just okay, we forgot to add auto layout. So this is the time it really helps you with the auto layout function actually. So because it helps you to make your design prettier, but we are a little late here because I wanted to add that in the initial stage itself, but in this case we just manually adjust it here. So what I'm going to do now is I go to the rectangle and I just say I just want to make it wider left and right, maybe 176 or 4. Okay, there. So what happens now, you might have guessed, when you mouse over, your original size is smaller, but when you mouse over, it gets you a smooth animation. So to get that smooth animation, make sure you have in the prototype you have selected the animation effect as smart animate. If you just change to dissolve or move in or out, for example dissolve, if you notice, it's just not a smooth animation. It doesn't create a smooth animation. So make sure that you have selected smart animate and ease in and out, and then you get this smooth animation. Okay, so the next effect is, let's say I also want to have a button, maybe let's also in this time let's duplicate and we create auto layout for this. When I mouse over this particular button, I want some kind of extra menu popping out of this. So for that, what I'm going to do now, I just duplicate these 3 times, 1 2 3, something like that, and then I select all these frames. So I will just color different color for this, so that maybe it's easy to identify. Let's hide this and then recolor to something else. Okay, and hide that, and then go here, maybe last one. Okay, and then we have the blue, and that's it. Yes. So next we select all these 3 buttons, and then let's forget about this first version. We also remove this button, and then we just duplicate this original frame, Control D. So if you want to create another frame, what you have to do is click on this frame and then click Control or Command D, and then it creates the same copy of your frame with another layer. Okay, so now we have these buttons. So but we don't want everything to be animated, we want the last one. So but I cannot see that, so I'm going to hide all the top ones, and then I keep the last bottom one, and then I change the prototype, and then I move to here, and then I change to while mouse enter. So okay, let's keep it while hovering for now. I will show you what's the difference. So while hovering, it turns into that, and then of course we smart animate is in and out. So let's go ahead and see how that design is. Okay, it changed to color, but that's not what we want. We want everything moves out to somewhere, right? For that, in this design, you go here and then enable frames everything, and then you select this frame, and then make sure you have enabled everything. Yes, we have enabled everything. So we just select one and then put it out, or maybe one second one, we just put it maybe down, and the next one we put it there, something like that. Okay, let's do one thing. We put everything into one side, so let's see how that looks. I mean, we can play around with it. So now we go here and then mouse over. You see, we get a cool effect, that is when you mouse over, you get that nice effect. But if you notice, this is not our primary button color is blue, but when you see the original, I mean, this over effect is like hiding the bottom layer. So we don't want that. How do we do that? So for that, there's a small trick that you go to the first frame and then select the first 3 layers or buttons, and then in the design, if you notice in the design, there's called pass through, that is 100%, that is the color. So we set this to 0, and make sure that the bottom is not 0, only the first 3. And then if you go and play, we have our blue button here, and then it gives you a smooth, nice animation with a nice drop down animation. So this is very cool and advanced, so I really recommend, and it's nice, looks very nice, right? And it's interactive, and you can also, I mean, play around this. It doesn't have to be in that way. I mean, you can also make it like this. Let's say if you have some round buttons or something, it also will be looking cool. Let's just quickly make sure they are center there. Okay, and now if you go here, mouse over, you see, so you can play around with it. It's very cool and it's very advanced and it works very nice, and I really recommend it. And yeah, so that's it. I covered most of the techniques that I use in my design, so I hope you understood, and let me know if you have some questions or in my comments, and I will be keep posting some of these tricks that I use in my design. And thanks for watching, and let me know if there is anything. Bye.